joining us. And Mike, take it away.
Thanks very much, Desi. And I appreciate the introduction and I appreciate everyone joining today. I know how hectic schedules are, so it means a lot to us for you to join us. So, today I'll be discussing, as we continue our webinar series around trends in technology, today's topic is 5 ways that you can lower costs, reduce risks, while at the same time actually improving your organization, improving the efficiency of your organization. So, these things are not mutually exclusive. And at BTRG, and my philosophy towards information governance is that it is actually a cost, not just a cost burden, but it's really a way to save tremendous amounts of money. And it's a cost reduction vehicle. And it's also a process improvement vehicle. So we don't like to think of information and even the word governance as a burden, but it's really something that's of great benefit to our organizations. So, one of the trends that we're focusing on in this webinar today is the rate of data growth that we're seeing in systems. 90% of the data in the world was created in the last 2 years. A very, somewhat startling statistic, but when you think about it, this rate of growth is only going to increase, and over the next decade, we're going to grow data volumes worldwide by 50 times or more. So if you look at your own growth rate in your enterprise, we see, even 25 of very moderate growth, but 40, even 50% growth is common with between the systems and transaction systems and our unstructured data, emails, statistics that are gathered, metric data, RFID tags, scans, etc. As our enterprises become more instrumented, we're creating a lot more data. So if you started with 15 petabytes 2 years ago, in 2 years from now, you're going to be at 39 petabytes. So significant growth. And what this means is it can overwhelm our budgets, right? If we have a 30, 40, 50% growth rate in our IT, in the systems that are managed by IT, yet the IT budget is not increasing by that same rate. In many cases, 1 to 2, 3%, maybe, even a 6%. In some cases, we're trying to reduce the IT budget. This is just really an untenable situation, right? How can we sustain this growth even with storage costs coming down per gigabyte? With that amount of growth, we cannot keep up. And another aspect is in the legal side of things, when we have to do e-discovery or present evidence or search through our organization for evidence, when we have to go through mountains of data that is not necessarily relevant, that takes a tremendous amount of cost to provide that data. And what we find is that, you have to look at everything in the organization. So what we see is, data value decreases over time. We have too much data, but not enough value in all this data. And actually, a lot of our volume outstrips that data which has value, right? So what this means is that while the value declines over time, the cost of storing it may come down a little, but it doesn't decline at the same rate as the value. And risk certainly doesn't decline. It actually goes up over time. So then what you end up with is this chasm or gap between the data that you have and where your value actually exists. And as we go to implement analytics systems or big data, this gap is a serious problem because we are spending to implement good decision making and analytics, but yet a lot of our data really isn't valuable or germane to making those decisions. So this creates a negative impact on your organization. It essentially amounts to a tax because we're retaining all this data that is a cost to our organization, but we're not deriving anything good from it. So just to dive into that cost to value gap, and risk to value gap. You see in this chart, the colors here represent different types of documents. So you can see Office documents, Excel, Word, and instant messages and email, very, very short lifespan. And then some things with longer lifespan, sales data, trend data, product research, perhaps. Even the longer data still only retains its value out 7 years, 10 years. And many of our systems are much older than this. So we really need to close these gaps. You can see that at 7 years, you have a very significant cost to value gap. And then beyond that, the risk to value gap increases over time and it just goes up. And so we want to close those gaps. So, a study by the Compliance, Governance, and Oversight Council, CGOC, estimates that in any organization, about 70% of that is needlessly retained. So, when we talk about value, and just to be very specific on what I mean when I say data of value, we're looking at essentially three areas. One is that data which has business utility. It's allowing us to make business decisions. It's letting us run the business. It's transactions that are in flight or still in process. Those things that we use to drive our business forward. Then we're legally obligated to retain data, perhaps past the business utility life. So that would be compliance and records retention policies. And then beyond that, you have data that may be part of a legal matter and you have to put it on hold. The rest of the data, about 70%, is what we call data debris. It's really that part of the data that's creating the gap to risk and value. So what we want to do is look at that. So what I'll do right now is launch a poll. I really appreciate if everyone could go ahead and answer that. So I'll get that launched. So again, like we're saying with the CGOC study, about 70% of our data is really worthless. It's that low value or no value. So just what percentage of your data do you feel is critical? And if you don't know, certainly that's a viable answer. But just to give us a sense of what you think out there, seems like a lot of people agreeing with the 30%, and then the rest are not sure. I'll give you about 10 more seconds to answer. Maybe about 5 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and close that poll and I'll show the results there. So you can see that most people not sure what it is, and that's really common. We see that a lot, and then other people agreeing. So I'm sort of glad to see that nobody is sort of claiming something other than what we see in this study, because I think it is pretty accurate. And so the not knowing is certainly a problem. And that's what we want to address here. And so what we see is there is some difficulty in, first of all, knowing what is of value, and then how do we manage that and make sure that we can do something. So if you look at the various stakeholders in our data in an organization, the CGOC Council, and we break them down into these four areas. You have the legal, who's bound by a duty to protect the organization from risk and mitigate risk, meeting legal obligations. You have the business, which is driven by value. How do we find information of value to help us run the business, to make better decisions and drive our business forward and increase our competitiveness? You have the records and retention organization. How do I go from physical to digital records management? Or even if you've done that, how do I make sure that my policies are actually being applied and followed, rather than just posting a PDF on an internal website and hope that everybody uses it? How can I make sure that that's happening? And then the IT, perhaps bearing the greatest burden, trying to find efficiency in running all these systems as the custodians of the data, who retain the data for us. How do I deal with this doubling data and shrinking budgets? So all of these stakeholders really have a part to play in how we view our data. And what we try to often do currently is solve these challenges independently. The legal department may look for e-discovery solutions that they like. IT is trying to figure out how to efficiently store data and drive costs down. And so we need to break that cycle, and trying to solve them independently is exactly the problem. So if you look at some of the studies that reflect these stakeholders, 70% in the CGO benchmark report claim that their retention schedules weren't actionable, right? They're a PDF file oftentimes. And the two key statistics here, I think, is the 22% of companies that are disposing of data today, but 98, almost 100% of companies believe they should be doing it, but yet almost 80% are not doing it. So there's a big gap there in what how do we get there? And then, of course, 70% using people glue, which means that in order to find the data we need, we're using people and email and notifications that way to retain data, rather than actually going out and putting the data itself on hold. So there's a gap there that we know that's happening. So what we find is it's really time to now declutter and attack this 70% of data debris. So just launched the second poll here. So just curious if anyone is currently disposing of data today. Please go ahead and answer that poll. So what we find is very often that companies are not actually disposing of anything, even if they've decommissioned or sunsetted applications, even if they have archived data, which we do a lot at BTRG. We do that a lot for our clients, help them to archive their data or look at tiered storage. We end up not actually removing that data very often. The clients end up keeping those archives around even when they pass their retention life. So just another couple seconds on the poll, and I'll go ahead and close that. So you can see 60% saying no and unsure, 40% yes. I certainly would welcome anyone in the comments there if you could type, maybe some information about what you are doing. I think that would be very beneficial to the rest of the attendees on how you are going about deleting and what's your policy and how do you know what data is viable for deletion. So definitely encourage you to answer that. So now getting into the 5 ways that we can lower costs, reduce risk, and improve processes at the same time. Again, really driven and centered around this trend of data growth and how we can dispose while we're improving things. So number 1, reduce data debris routinely and systematically. So if you haven't deleted any data, you probably have some catch-up time to do where we would delete a big chunk. We should do that and then make sure that we keep our systems pruned and doing that deletion in a defensible, systematic, and equal way across the enterprise. The number 2 reason is keep calm and decommission. I sort of like this sign here, but really what you want to do is look at your legacy applications and related data in such that that data may not have any value and decommission those. Take the application offline, perhaps take the database offline as well, store just the data while retaining access to it, save on the perhaps any licensing that you may be paying, database license fees you may be able to save, and certainly the effort in keeping these systems up and running. We had a customer who had a system that was so old that no one was still at the company who originally implemented it, and they were fearful that if their data center ever had a power outage, they wouldn't be able to get that system back online. So they were very keen on decommissioning that system and getting that data into some standard format where they didn't need the system anymore. So that's number 2. Number 3 reason or way that you can do it is to look at legal costs, right? Lower the legal costs. And again, the deletion of data, doing it defensively, will allow us to do that. We have less data, our e-discovery costs will go down. If we can actually put legal holds directly on the data without sending an email to IT and say, please put all matters related to X, Y, and Z in this 6,000 line spreadsheet on hold. If we can make that into the hands of IT, we'd save tremendous amount of cost in the interaction between IT and legal. If legal can just go ahead and say, actionable effect on their data and put what they want on hold, as well as find out where data is and speedy discovery. So that needs to be instrumented between legal and IT, and that's the key connection between those stakeholders there. Number 4 way we can lower costs and reduce risk is store data according to its value. If you remember that chart I showed earlier, we want to always store our data commensurate with that declining value of that data. And this means tiering, using very tiered storage. As soon as data reaches low value, we move it off to low cost storage. When it reaches no value, we move it out of the enterprise. And the number 5 way we can lower costs is to leverage interconnected systems and bring these stakeholders together. We want to automate all of this processing. We don't want IT making decision about what data to retain and keep. We want that decision to be driven by those 3 buckets that I talked about earlier. What's are on hold currently, what has business utility, and what is our retention, and make all of that actionable. And the way we do that is we have interconnected systems that join those stakeholders and allow them to, for legal to put things on hold, to put a retention schedule in a business glossary and a taxonomy of our data that's actionable, and then data will delete automatically when we reach the end of life or retention, unless it's on legal hold. And so we at BTRG have expertise in implementing these types of systems for our customers. And it's certainly possible to link all of these and have a set of interconnected systems that enable us to defensively dispose and really save tremendous amount of cost, while at the same time improving our process, improving the disposal process, improving the value business gets out of the data, improving the analytics with high quality data, improving legal processing, and making e-discovery a lot cheaper and easier. So just take a second to launch another poll here to get some more feedback. So do you see sort of the point I'm making, that consistent collaboration and systematic linkages between these key stakeholders would be a success factor for enabling your organization to delete data effectively? Again, it's about having the right vision and plan for your information governance, so that you do it in a really actionable way, in a way that can save you millions of dollars in storage and legal costs, and bring stakeholders together and not try to solve the problem independently in each of those organizations. When we select an e-discovery solution, let's not select one that can't be connected to our archiving solution, and our legal holds aren't connected to the way we decommission and archive and tier our storage. So I'll go ahead and close that poll. I think everybody answered now. So let me share those results. So excellent. I see that many people do see this. So I'm hopeful that the message is getting through, and I'm glad to see people agree with it. And unsure, we certainly can talk, and I recommend you look at our website, btrgroup.com/data, and you can find out more information there and make it clear. And at the end, I'll give contact information. So if anyone's curious for more information, we can certainly provide that. Okay. So just to kind of put a little more emphasis on what we mean by how you can solve these problems, we want to move from our traditional emphasis to a more high value shift. And this is the way we structure our information governance solutions and approach. Moving from records retention and policies that are not actionable to actual defensible disposal, where we're removing data in a way that's in accordance with all our policies and our retention schedules, but make sure that we're actually moving that data out the door and reclaiming that cost. Instead of policy publication, we want to instrument the retention schedule. So again, rather than a PDF out there that we hope people follow or assume that it's the law of our organization, let's instrument it, so make sure that we can actually do that and set our systems up in a way to read our retention schedules and delete that data automatically when it's time to delete. And instead of just looking at information governance as a risk monitoring, and we understand the risk and we document ways to mitigate it, let's actually start taking cost out of the organization by attacking the volume of data we have. Take that out, reclaim storage, reclaim servers, stop paying database licensing, stop paying legacy application licensing, reduce the overall footprint. As we go to SaaS solutions, if you're looking at those, it's very difficult to move all your data there. So let's only move what's needed out into the cloud and decommission and archive the rest and tier it according to its value. So really get very serious about cost takeout. So just some examples. This is I think this is a bit of a larger example, but that 15 petabyte example I referenced earlier, again, just some numbers here, but if you look at this idea that it costs about $90 million to store all of our data in 2011, by 2014 that can go up to $132 million at that rate of growth of 40%. If we are able to actually peel that back and reverse that cycle and remove significant amount of data, both in our applications, our structured data, our databases, and our unstructured documents, emails, messaging, file store, SharePoint, we can really pull that back and save significant amount of money. Not only just are we avoiding future costs, but we're actually going to reduce our storage. Especially if you outsource your storage, you can actually get cost back there. From a legal perspective, you can lower the run rate, and by that we mean the cost of doing e-discovery and the cost of putting things on legal hold. A lot of organizations are using spreadsheets and people to track that, and you may have paralegals or paying an outside firm to do your e-discovery for you, to figure out what's on hold, and managing just thousands of lines and thousands of spreadsheets. It's untenable. So if we create systems that instrument this and connect it to the retention of our data, we can actually reduce that run rate and have a lot less data to send out for e-discovery and find that data a lot more quickly. So you can peel that back and spend millions, 24 million less over a 3-year span. In the business will benefit by legal and IT cost reduction, freeing up money to operate more efficiently, perhaps opening up the IT department to implement some of the initiatives that business wants to do. Perhaps we can even pay for a big data initiative by freeing up all of this cost. So just starting to summarize now a little bit, what we try to do is improve information economics, and that's that storing cost to value and those gaps that I talked about. So an information lifecycle governance solution really brings your IT, your business, your legal and records stakeholders together, wraps it in a process, technology, strategy, and really a new paradigm for your information governance that will be an ongoing program in your organization to make sure that you're eliminating unnecessary costs, reducing that risk, defensively disposing of your data, bringing your storage into alignment with the value of your data, aligning that cost to value, and then reducing the legal risk and information risk by making sure that your privacy, your e-discovery, and regulatory are all instrumented, and that you secure your information as well, so that you are both facilitating legal and making sure that you're more secure. And at BTRG, we do a lot of security solutions and data privacy solutions. And this will enable the business to realize the value and have greater analytics and do significant things with analytics and more initiatives that you want from your IT and in the business in general. So just as we finish up, one final poll for everyone. I'll go ahead and launch that. So have you established an information lifecycle governance or a information governance or data governance, information management, data management program where you're looking at some of these things around how do we store and align our data to value? So I'll give a few more seconds there for vote, and I'll go ahead and close that poll out. So I see a lot of folks on today haven't, and that's, I guess, not surprising. That may be why you joined us today. So I appreciate all of your answers to the poll questions, and certainly good feedback for everyone. So I'll just close that out and start to finish up. Again, I thank you for your attending today. And again, at BTRG, I'm the practice director for our information governance practice, where we focus on all of the types of things you see in this tag cloud here, enterprise content management and defensible disposal, big data solutions. We have a lot of experience in ERP applications like PeopleSoft and Oracle eBusiness. So really help you to understand how you can implement a data management strategy where aligned with IBM, who has really industry-leading solutions in information management. We combine that with our value-driven solution. So we really focus on not putting governance in place just for governance sake, but do it in a way that gives you significant tangible results and saves you millions of dollars, reduces your risk, while at the same time improving your processing. So I hope you were able to get something out of the presentation today. I thank you very much for attending. And really hope that you can join us for as we wind down our series. We have a few more. The next webinar that we have is Wednesday, June 12th, on how to build a big data governance strategy. So a little bit more on how we get prepared for big data and make sure that when we implement big data solutions, we're doing it in a way that's most cost effective. And then we have a review of Optum 9.1, which is IBM's information management solution that does data archiving, application to decommissioning, data privacy, and test data management. So if you're curious about that solution, please join us on June 19th. And all of the webinars we've done so far are available on our website at btrgroup.com/data webinar. If you go there, you can see recordings of our past events and register for the next one. So I really hope that we see you again in the future. And thanks again for joining, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.